Hi, this is Vad Lee, and you're tuned into the Athlete Student Podcast.
Welcome to the Athlete Student Podcast, where former student athletes take us on their college journey, discussing the high and lows of balancing athletics, academics, and other demands. No two stories are the same. I'm your host, Eugene Holloman, author of the Athlete Student book series. Let's get right into it. So the best player I ever had a chance to play with was Rodney Landers. Like, he was built like a truck, man. He had a gun, but he was one of the smartest players I've had a chance to play with. And when he got hurt against Montana in our semifinal game, that was pretty much it for JMU football for the next couple of years, because it was centered around the quarterback. And when our coaching staff, Mickey Matthews, got fired, it was because he couldn't find another Rodney Landers. And I never thought we'll find anyone comparable to him. And I remember getting a phone call like a couple years later. I followed JMU football here and there. And my homeboy hit me up. He was like, man, check out this quarterback. I bet you he reminds you of somebody. And I watched the game online. I think you guys were playing Villanova at Villanova. Mm-hmm. And man, I swear I thought that was Rodney Landers playing. Like he got a couple years of eligibility, man. Yeah. And from then I was like, yeah, JMU found somebody. Yeah. And granted, they always tried to find the next Rodney Landers, but you had your own style, and I think people probably compared you to him. Mm-hmm. But that's when I became a fan of Vad Lee. So I'm happy to have you on, man. What I want to do is take it back to high school. Okay. I did a little digging, and I saw that your sophomore year, you actually played wide receiver. Yeah. Had close to 1,200 yards receiving, yes, sir, and over 9 touchdowns. So what made you say, all right, I don't, and those numbers, man, that's top notch numbers right there. Sir. If you played in the league, you had 1,200 yards. That's considered a Pro Bowl caliber year. Yeah. And so what made you say, all right, man, I don't want to do this no more. I want to play quarterback.
Yeah. No, man, you really did your homework. That's awesome. For me, I came in as a quarterback, and we just so happened to have a senior that was ahead of me, and he was really good. Yeah. His name was Corey Gaddis. He's a big brother to me, and he ended up going to Duke University on scholarship. And it's funny because he ended up going to Duke and he played receiver, while now I play the quarterback. But he was actually my quarterback, throwing me the ball when we was in high school. And one day my coach pulled me to a side and was like, hey, I want you to get some real game footage. I want to get you in some game mode. Yeah. And I want you to be able to experience the speed and experience what high school ball is like. And he said, I'm going to throw you out there at receiver and let's see what you do. So if you came to practice, you would see me strictly quarterback. Now, when you come to the game and turn on the lights on Fridays, I wanted to be out on the field because I knew that I can help my team win. And I don't think anybody was expecting me to have over 1,100 yards receiving. But my favorite route was a 9-ball, and I just kind of used my speed and used my height advantage to have success at receiver.
So let's go back to your senior year at Hillside High. You played for Antonio King, who's now the running back coach at North Carolina Central. And you guys went 16-0 and led Hillside to his first state championship in 66 years. And take me through that whole season, man. What was that like?
Yeah, well, our motto that year was all in 2010, 16-0 state champs. That was our motto from the very beginning. We knew that we had the talent, but the thing that was, I went to historically black high school. Yeah. And the knock about us was, they always have the talent, but they won't be disciplined enough when it comes to the playoffs. Yeah. And as a leader of the team, I wanted to make sure that was not the case for us. And my best friend and I, Meyer Craw, he ended up going to the Naval Academy on full scholarship. He was the captain on the defense. I was the captain on offense. Man, I can't tell you how many writing on paper our visions, our goals, talking about leadership. We actually held our own leadership meetings with the captains of the team, with just me and him leading it. And I don't think I really knew what I was doing then, but now that I'm more mature and older and I've been in the business world, I really see the value of, having that camaraderie where we were able to come closer together and really just talk out your visions, talk out your plans. Don't just hold it in to yourself, and don't be selfish. You're able to share it with your teammates about what exactly you want to do. So we knew that we wanted to take it one game at a time. For my high school guys, I would tell you one of our goals was to win summer 7-on-7. Because we wanted to know what winning felt like. So we wanted to win it all. So we ended up going to East Carolina, and we won their entire 7-on-7 passionately. That was our last 7-on-7 for that summer. And we felt like if we could win one of those, we would know what winning a championship would what it would look like. And that gave us great momentum going forward to the season.
After the season, man, your high school career consisted of 5,000 passing yards, almost 2,000 rushing yards, 85 touchdowns. You were the Pac-6 Conference Player of the Year, the AP North Carolina State Player of the Year, first team All-State, MVP of the offense, defense, All-American Bowl. So when you look back after hearing all your accolades, man, what do you think about it?
Oh, man. First, I think blessed. I think I was blessed to be put in position to, at the time, to be put in a position to, first of all, lead my high school to a state championship. And then, I just think it was definitely a grind. This is something that I always wanted for myself, something that I always pictured myself being able to potentially go on and play college ball, then professional ball. But I knew that, like everybody, it got to go through high school first, and you got to be able to perform. So for me, man, it was simply because I loved the game. I remember after the games, my dad, sometimes it would be hard for me to even come home, even if we won. I mean, even my senior year, we won every game, but sometimes I still didn't want to come home if I didn't play to the level of expectations. If you go to my house right now, you'll see my dad penciled in. He does his homework before the games, and he has it penciled in on the wall. My stats, what they should be, what I ended up with, and he'll grade me A, B, C, or D, or F. And, I can go 12 for 20, and that'll be an F,
I got you.
So I just came from a family that was very supportive and pushed me because they knew exactly what I wanted to achieve, and they pushed me towards that.
After your senior year, and every athlete kind of feels this. You get that what's next moment, right? And so, as an African American dual threat, they label you the dual threat quarterback.
Right.
What's the stigma that you face in the recruiting process? I'm sure coaches want to convert you to a defensive back, wide receiver, and whatever the case may be. What's the stigma behind being an African American dual threat quarterback?
Yeah, well, it's funny because you talked about me playing receiver, and because I had such success at receiver my sophomore year, I'm a baby, right? I'm a sophomore, and colleges saw that, and they was like, man, about when this guy becomes a senior, he's going to be a top receiver. He's going to be the best receiver in the nation. But they just didn't know that I was really the quarterback. I was a backup quarterback waiting my turn. And, that junior year I did okay, did well enough. But then senior year I really took it over the top. And for me, that's always been one of my frustrations, being an African-American quarterback, where you get labeled not smart enough, can't handle pressure, or can't handle the blitz, or can't handle a college full-size playbook or NFL playbook. And thank God those stigmas are slowly starting to leave. Now I think I say slowly because there's still some out there. But I feel like I rank to the best of the best. And, certainly my play was able to show that. So for me, I wasn't only just playing for myself, but I was also playing with a chip on my shoulder to let people know that I'm not just that athlete playing quarterback, but I'm actually that quarterback, and I happen to be athletic as well.
Is there like a community with African-American quarterbacks where you feel like you're carrying the torch for the ones that come behind you?
Yeah, I would say for my high school for sure, because I know what we're going to produce every year.
Right.
Now, in terms of, as we get bigger, college to professional, I would say quarterback in general is like a fraternity. If you play quarterback, you just got so much respect for one another.
Right.
Now, certainly, being an African-American quarterback, you have to carry more weight than maybe others do.
Right.
If you throw an interception, then, he can't throw,
Right.
you throw a bad pass, I told you so
Right.
type deal. And so we always got to make sure that we're on point. But, what I'm starting to realize that life is similar to the game of football.
Yeah.
I mean, you go through ups and downs, momentum swings, and
Right.
all that good stuff.
Right.
And you just got to make sure that you're on point always. And I mean, even as an African American brother, you got to make sure that you're on point when you're out in the streets or you get pulled over or whatever.
Yeah.
So I've certainly learned a lot of lessons through the game of football.
Absolutely, man. So going back to the recruiting process, man, you had offers from Maryland, Duke, NC State, UNC, Wake Forest. Why did you choose the option offense? Like, even I'm not familiar.
It's a famous question.
With Georgia Tech, but Paul Johnson and the option offense. What made you select Georgia Tech?
Yeah, no, that's a fair question. I actually get asked that a lot. I'll share a funny story. So we was my first week at Georgia Tech. GT, we used to play Georgia State and I think Clark. We used to play them in 7-on-7 over the summer, and it was player ran, no coaches or anything. And I think it was my first week on campus, and we played Georgia State. We were actually losing. Mm-hmm. And, of course, this is 7-on-7. You can't run the ball. So,
right.
This isn't Georgia Tech forte. And we were losing. They decided to put me in the game, and I didn't know the plays or anything yet. And 3 plays later, we ended up scoring and tying it up. Mm-hmm. And some of the old heads on the team, the older guys, they pulled me to a side, and they were saying, man, they asked that same question. They said, why did you come here? Mm-hmm. And I'm looking like, hey, I'm coming to change the offense. I'm a open this offense up. Mm-hmm. The coaches said they want to open it up, so I'm the guy, to open it up. And they just laughed at me.
Yeah. So open it up, you mean instead of running the option, y'all was gonna go 5 wide type open up?
That wasn't I wasn't that naive to think that we was gonna go 5 wide, but I did believe that he wanted to just incorporate more passing. Mm-hmm. I knew for one, I knew that I could, use my athletic ability to do well in this offense. But also, this question ties into the last question that you asked me about, the stigma. Yeah. I think, looking back in high school, I think that I allowed the stigma to kind of create a little fear in my decision making because I knew for certain that I was going to play quarterback at Georgia Tech. Mm-hmm. And, a lot of people won't understand, how did you choose Georgia Tech? Because I knew for certain that I was going to play quarterback at Georgia Tech. And that's all I wanted. That's all I wanted was an opportunity to play quarterback, to be able to be under center. Right. And I couldn't say that about North Carolina. I couldn't say that about other schools, Maryland, that was recruiting me. I couldn't say that. So for me, I knew for sure that I was going to play quarterback at Georgia Tech, and that's really, my reasoning for going.
I had a conversation with a friend of mine actually sometime this week. He was asking me, we were talking about the Florida State running back Cam Akers, and I was asking him, what made him think that Florida State was the best fit for him? Mm-hmm. And my friend of mine said it's because he probably rooted for them when he was a kid, so he was like, all right, I'm going to go to this place that I always rooted for. Was that the case for you in Georgia Tech?
No, actually, I wanted to go to Carolina. Okay. Carolina was my number one choice, but again, one day the head coach called me out of school, and he was like, hey, you should come over here, and, I want to have a conversation with you. He said, hey, don't bring your parents, don't bring your coach. I just want to have a conversation with you. And I just remember, I don't even remember the conversation, but the main thing I remember was we was looking outside of his, nice office overlooking the field. And he started naming everybody on the roster who played quarterback in high school, but now play like safety, linebacker, receiver, running back.
Yeah.
And he never said it, but I got it. And honestly, I was really hurt by that, because I was on the verge of committing to Carolina. I was there. I mean, I'm 15 minutes up the road.
Right.
So that was kind of where I saw myself going my entire life. So after that, I was kind of like, man, I really just want to know, am I going to be your quarterback? And if you say I'm your quarterback, then hey, I'm probably going to you.
Right.
And Georgia Tech was one of the first schools that said, hey, you're our quarterback.
I got you.
Yeah.
It's similar to, I remember Pat White. I went to school with 2 of his teammates, and that was his thing too. Is West Virginia said, you're going to play quarterback,
right.
while other schools were saying, we're going to convert you to a receiver or
right.
safety.
Right.
And so when you get that word, you kind of take people at your word, and that's what you believe.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this: did you receive any pushback or any flack from leaving the state of North Carolina?
Not as much as you would think. Looking back now, I feel like there shouldn't be any reason that top guy, the player of the state,
right.
I don't think there's any reason that you should not go to a Carolina school, or not. I'm not going to put it on the recruit. I'm going to put it on the coaches that they shouldn't be. They should be recruiting you
right.
really hard. And Duke, definitely, I have so much respect for that program. Coach Cutcliffe, you would have thought I was enrolled in Duke. How much I've been there. I'm from Durham. NC State recruited me well. And Carolina, they kind of like messed their chances up when the head coach said that. So I will give props to Carolina, NC State and Duke. But man, I definitely would love to see the North Carolina talent definitely see what we can do. I feel like we can match up against the Florida States, the Miamis.
Absolutely.
But we got to keep the talent in state.
Right. So, at the sign-in with Virginia Tech in February 2011,
Georgia Tech.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
I said Virginia Tech.
No, you're fine.
Georgia Tech. How did you think your career would turn out
after signing there? I had high expectations. I had high goals. I wanted to play early. For me, I saw me opening up the offense. I felt like that. My career I felt like it could be like a Heisman career, honestly.
Yeah.
I felt like, if we were able to do things in the run game, obviously Georgia Tech is always going to be dominant in the run game with that offense that they were running at the time. And then adding my component to be able to throw the ball, I felt like, I felt like those were 2 great weapons that would be hard to stop. Now, when I got there, the reality set in that, hey, after you go to practice a couple of times and throw the ball only like 10 times in 3 practices, you kind of realize that, this is not exactly ideal what I had in mind. So, yeah.
Knowing what you know about the recruiting process now,
oh yeah,
would you have done anything differently?
Absolutely,
right.
Absolutely. I recently heard someone say, it was a speaker, he said, don't allow anyone to tell you that you're the only one for the job or you're the perfect person for the job.
Right.
I would say that same thing to recruits today, because there probably is somebody else out there,
right.
and there's probably somebody else that can do it better than you. So don't allow that pressure to be on you when you're choosing a school.
Right.
This is supposed to be a blessing, and it's supposed to be a choice that you make for the best of your career, the best for you. So for me, I would share that advice because at the end of the day, your mom and your dad and your fans are not going to be in the dorm room with you at 12 o'clock at night when you're contemplating all different types of stuff. When you're under pressure and when you're at a place where you're not happy.
Right.
I know what that's like, and it's not worth it. I mean, you can easily make a decision while you have the opportunity to make a decision that's what's best for you. For me, I allowed the pressure of I didn't take any visits. I only went to Georgia Tech, which I wanted to personally go to all of my visits, but that pressure of coaches telling me, hey, if you go on a visit, then other people are going to go on a visit. I allowed that to get in the way, and I did a lot of recruiting for my class. I would hit people up on Facebook and use social media all the time. So now I was the leader. I was deemed like the leader of the class. So I allowed that pressure. I certainly can't think about anything else if I'm recruiting these guys. But looking back, I would say make the best decision at the time that's best for you.
Right. Here you are, a redshirt freshman at Georgia Tech. What's your typical day like, being a redshirt freshman?
Yeah. So my redshirt year was tough. Because one, I already asked to leave. A lot of people don't know that, but I knew 1 month in that this was not the offense for me, and I seen, the recruiting days are over, where they pull out the red carpet.
Right.
I just knew that this wasn't it. And then I had confirmation from my older teammates, like, hey, it's never going to change, So I'm like, all right, you guys might be right. So at that point, I knew I wanted to leave. I actually had to travel to every game because we didn't know we had a starting quarterback, but I guess they weren't sure if it was going to pan out. So they pretty much told me, hey, you need to practice as if you're getting ready to play. So that was a struggle because I'm traveling. Although traveling to games is a blessing and it's a cool opportunity. When you're a red shirt, you're kind of like in your own head, and you don't fully grasp the team yet. And for me, I seen my teammates who I came in with, the red shirts, they got to stay back and they're partying and they're going home. I'm like, man, I'm homesick a little bit. Like, I would love to go home while the team is gone. So it was tough because I'm eating like, I'm eating pregame and all the hotel food, the cookies and everything, which was great. Again, it's a blessing. But man, I got fat that red shirt year. I mean, it was like I was just there eating. I knew I wasn't gonna play. Nobody was calling on me. But it was unique. I'm thankful for the experience because who knows? I probably would have been in some mess if I would have not traveled with the team.
How is it with schoolwork at Georgia Tech? Balancing the schoolwork and still traveling?
Yeah, GT is tough. Georgia Tech is tough academically, and we had advisors who would make sure that we had our schedules laid out, and they did a really good job. They do a great job at Georgia Tech with the academic advising, so they helped out a lot.
So jump into your redshirt freshman year. You guys started 4-5. You backed up Tevin Washington. You came in against University of North Carolina and had pretty much the game of your life to that point. Right? So after that game, did you think, all right, Coach Paul Johnson's going to hand me the keys. I deserve the right to start. What was your mindset?
Well, well, first of all, I kind of told you the backstory about the Carolina thing. So before that game, man, I was just in so much tears because I thought that, my visions growing up was I was going to be there, but just in the other jersey. So the reality set in there, and I knew I just wanted to perform well. That was my first time being back in my hometown. And he trusted me to put me in the game. And that was the first game that I played, majority of the game. I didn't start, but I played 3/4 of the game. And man, that was a huge opportunity for, I think, threw like one touchdown, 2 touchdown passes, and ran for 1. So it was a unique experience to be in front of my family and friends, but to also I was also out to prove to Carolina that they made a mistake. Now, if you look at my career at Georgia Tech, I threw the ball most and got in the shotgun most when I was in North Carolina. Which
you threw almost for 300 yards that game.
Yeah. So which was interesting because I feel like the coach kind of knew everything that he promised me and my family. And it's funny because even we played against Duke the next year, and I threw 4 touchdown passes that game. So it's funny. He kind of threw the ball a little bit more when I was playing in my hometown.
How was it for the rest of that year? You go from just lighting it up, and then having to go back to the backup role.
Yeah. So what we were doing, I was still young, and we were doing every 2 series. 2 series. I'll go in and then he'll figure out who he want to kind of stick with. For me, I just wanted to get my feet wet. I felt comfortable out there. I felt like things were going in the right direction. I felt like I had to do whatever I had to do to make plays to stay on the field. But to Tevin, I mean, he was the leader. Yeah. He was the senior. He was the guy that that was well experienced. So I learned a ton from him just watching him. So it wasn't that bad because I knew I was gonna get a shot to go in the game. Right. It was just about what are you gonna do with that opportunity.
I remember at my senior year, this is after my knee surgery, I was not the same player. Yeah. Trying to rehab and just rush back. But I remember they would rotate us like every so often, and in my mind, I'm hoping like, man, that the running back who gets the ball don't break a long one because he's gonna stay in the game.
Absolutely.
So, for quarterback, is it a different mentality that you still root for who's ever in front of you, or do you in the back of your mind you're like, man, no, I hope you throw a pick so I can get inserted back into the game?
Well, at Georgia Tech, we kind of had a running back mentality, right? So it's probably a little the same way that you was feeling. But you certainly don't want to wish bad on your teammates or anything like that. But I think every competitor has that, you want to compete and you want to be the guy who has the ball in your hands. That's why I think a lot of people play offense because we know that we believe in what we can do when the ball is in our hands. So certainly I wanted to be the guy out there all the time with the ball in my hands. But I'm thankful for the times that I had to just sit back and watch because there were some times it was crunch time. I'm like, man, this is tight. I don't know if I can handle it. You know what I mean? So, Tevin definitely held you down.
2013, man. Your red shirt sophomore year. The keys have been handed to you, man. This is like the moment that you've been waiting for badly to start in quarterback. ACC. That's big time. Yes, sir. Talk to me about some of the highs and lows that you experienced that year.
Certainly there were some highs. I talked about earlier going to my hometown in Durham, North Carolina, and throwing 4 touchdown passes and beating Duke. Going to a bowl game, having the opportunity to go to a bowl game, playing in the Tennessee Titans Stadium. But there was also some lows. I felt like that. For me, I never really fully got settled in with that offense. When I came in as a relief, my redshirt freshman year, it was more shotgun. It was more, pass the ball on, when I get in the game. It was just more opportunities for me to be able to see the whole field. Right. Well, now you're the starting quarterback. You got to read that defensive end. You got to read that linebacker, that blitzing linebacker. You kind of stay on the front surface of the defense and don't really worry about much of the back end. Right. And that was challenging for me because in high school I never ran the option. Georgia Tech was my first time running the option. Yeah. I never even pitched the ball once in high school. Didn't know what that was. So for me, man, it wasn't my skill set. Okay. And I had to learn that, and I'm thankful that although it was tough to leave and everything, I'm thankful that I was able to make a decision that was best for me.
After the Music City Bowl, you let it be known that you wanted to transfer, and you were quoted as saying, I remember a lot of times going to my dorm room, being alone, and just really in tears because I felt so alone. So for younger kids who may watch this, can you take me through your state of mind? Yeah. I know as athletes, man, those thoughts when we feel kind of isolated and we feel like a moment of weakness, we feel like we can't tell nobody how we really feel because one, I'm a big tough football player, and two, you're afraid that it's going to be misinterpreted, that people will not really understand you. For me, man, I felt like, especially when you play the quarterback position, everybody's watching you. Right. Of course, I had big expectations. I think there was a lot of excitement with my commitment going to Georgia Tech, a lot of fan support and everything. And for me, man,
some of that aloneness was me feeling like I've let people down. And when an athlete feels that, it's rough.
It's rough.
It's definitely rough, because in your mind, you know who you are and what you're capable of doing, but yet it's not showing really in everybody else's eyes or on the field. So for me, man, that was really tough, because I knew the type of, player that I wanted to be, and I knew the type of player that, that I was and that I am, but it just wasn't matching up, it just wasn't mixing, and something had to change, and I knew that. So, man, I spent half of my redshirt sophomore year knowing that I was, gonna leave, and I wanted to make sure that I wasn't being a cancer to the team. That's one of the things that that's why I kind of felt like that, because I was kind of holding everything in. When I show up at practice and show up to the games, you're gonna hear me screaming, yelling, as if I'm all in, which I am all in. But when it's outside of that, I'm kind of like, man, I know that this is is not where I am, but you definitely want to finish well, whatever you're doing. You want to finish well, and for me, I wanted to finish well at Georgia Tech. One of my biggest disappointments that year was not beating Georgia. That was our rival. That's the rival, and I wanted to really go. I knew I was leaving, but I wanted to really go out on top with beating Georgia, which we were ahead the entire game. Coming back, but I consider that one of my best games. Ended up throwing for like 2-something on like a top 10 defense. But I wanted to finish strong. So. My Georgia Tech career wasn't exactly what I would have painted it to be, but it was a start for me to know, for one, I often think about this. If I would have went straight to like a James Madison, I would have always wondered, like, could I play on that level? So for me, I never had to worry about that. I know I could play on that level. So the whole James Madison thing, the success there, that's just who I am. I'm just in an offense that complements my playing style.
Was there anyone that you talked to about some of those feelings of just being in that state of mind, or was it really all just bottled up? It's hard talking to your boys and your teammates. I get that.
Because one, everybody and their mama say they're gonna transfer, right? I mean, everybody talking about transferring, but nobody's really for real. But I will tell you that one of the best advices that I got was a high school mentor he was from high school, and he used to coach us, and he's a businessman. And he told me, he said, Vad, you've been making decisions based on everybody else your entire career. He said, it's time for you to make a selfish decision for Vad. And I'm like, wait a minute, that doesn't sound biblical. That doesn't sound like, that doesn't sound like the right thing to say, but it was so real, and it was exactly what I needed to hear. He said, you need to make a selfish decision for Vad. And that kind of freed me up. That freed me up so much to the point where I was like, all right, I need to figure out what I want, and I need to move from there. Not get emotional about what my parents want, what the fans want, what my coach want. I knew that I need to make a definite decision that would be best for me.
So you let your intentions be known to the world, man, that you were considering, or that you made the decision to leave Georgia Tech. What was the process like, the recruiting process? Is it just like high school where a lot of people are hitting you up? How is that?
Yeah, it was recruiting all over again. Maybe not as much, because guys knew that they only had 2 years with me instead of a 4-year investment. And if I would have went on the FBS level, I would have had to sit out, so I would have only had 1 year to play, which I considered that. I had teams like Baylor and Ohio State and people like that were interested. But I knew that in order to fully develop, I need to be in the system for 2 years. So I had a bunch of smaller schools calling, and for me that was humbling. Because you go from playing in the ACC now to like having smaller schools call, but I knew that I needed to be on that level so that I can have 2 years to play.
Right.
One of the cool stories off that is Hampton University called me, and I knew I wasn't interested in Hampton.
Yeah.
And but one of my high school buddies, he was committed to East Carolina coming out his senior year, but he didn't have the grades to go. So he ended up going to JUCO, getting his associate's degree, and it was a 3-year process while I was at Georgia Tech. I mean, this guy haven't really played football for real in 3 years, but he was committed to East Carolina coming out.
Right.
And I told him, I said, hey, I'm not really interested, but I know a guy who may be interested. He was committed to ECU. You guys should take a look at it.
Right.
They pulled up his film, and they offered him a scholarship the next day.
Oh,
and that's
wow.
one of my good buddies. And now he went from not being able to qualify to get to his senior year out of high school to now having 3 degrees before he was 24 years old.
Oh, wow.
He got his master's degree and everything from Hampton.
Oh, wow.
So that's encouragement to the high school guys.
Yeah.
Now things happen. Sometimes they start clicking after. But keep going. I mean, you may never know. You may get blessed, but you got to put in the work.
Right.
If he never went to go get his associate's degree, then he wouldn't have never been able to be qualified to go to Hampton. So that was one of the cool stories. And of course, James Madison ended up getting Coach Withers from Ohio State, and I was like, man, they told me that, hey, we're gonna do everything that Ohio State doing. We're gonna run that offense, and we need a guy to be able to do that. And I felt like, I was watching Braxton Miller and watching those guys play, and I knew that my skill set, that would complement who I was as a player.
Other than JMU, was it anyone close
to
getting your services?
Yeah, Towson. I actually went on a visit there because I didn't want to make the same mistake that I made at Georgia Tech. So I wanted to make sure that I took my official visits, because it's recruiting all over again. You get to take official visits. And then Northern Iowa. But I remember my going to the airport, my mom was taking me, and like 10 minutes in the ride, I was like, Ma, I ain't going to no Iowa.
Right.
What am I doing?
Right.
I'm just going to waste their time.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
yeah.
And I'm not about that. I don't want to waste your time. So that was actually a hard conversation, because they purchased the ticket and everything, but the coach was like, man, just come. You said you was gonna come, just come. But again, going back to that advice that I received, he said, make a selfish decision for Vad. And I knew that this was my last big decision when it came to football, and I wanted to make sure it was right.
Right. What were some of the things you had to adjust personally, athletically, academically, with your transfer to JMU?
Academically, I lost a lot of credits coming from Georgia Tech, which was different. I had to change my major to public policy and administration. I really didn't know exactly what I was going to do with that, but I was willing to do what I had to do because of JMU. And then athletically, I had to definitely let my teammates know that I'm not some big-time college quarterback coming from the ACC. I'm just one of them. And that was the main thing that I wanted to get across. But certainly having to meet new teammates and play with new guys to learn new routes. At Georgia Tech, we didn't throw the ball like that, so now my arm is tired, so it was definitely an adjustment in that aspect. And then, James Madison, Georgia Tech had some things that James Madison didn't have, just because you are in the ACC. So, it was more humbling. You got a smaller weight room. You got, different things that you just kind of maybe took for granted at Georgia Tech that you don't necessarily have now at JMU.
Aside from football, what stood out to you about JMU?
Yeah, man. First, the beautiful mountains, the scenery of JMU. Yeah. That's what stood out to me, and JMU is just it's a special culture. For me, I spent my first 3 years at a college in a big city, Atlanta, Georgia. That was like, man, I'm in Atlanta. Right. That's huge. But I will say at Georgia Tech, it didn't necessarily have that college vibe. It was almost like you were an adult, and you had to survive. You know what I mean? You had to make sure you lock your doors. You got to make sure your car is good. You know, you got to make sure, you know, if you're walking down the street at night that, you know, and anything can happen anywhere. I'm not saying it's just Atlanta, but what I am saying is James Madison is a closed, you know, college campus, where Georgia Tech, you're right in the heart of Atlanta. So that was different, which I actually enjoyed more of being in, like, on a campus, you know, where I know, hey, you go to James Madison, you know, I know that, you know, it wasn't anything strange going on. But again, anything can happen anywhere. Certainly James Madison is downs as well, Harrisonburg community. But it was like that, getting that presence of this is JMU culture.
Right. Question I've been dying to ask you, man. I want to make sure I phrase it the right way. So you played for Coach Withers, right? The players seem to gravitate towards him, right? But the JMU community, man, from the stories I heard, I never met Coach Withers personally, so I don't really know, you know, anything about him. But they don't have the best things to say.
No.
What would you say to JMU Nation of just how they received or what they think about Coach Withers? Because when the name is brought up, man, it's not the most pleasant things to say. Coach Withers was necessary for James Madison in a new transition, because his vision is just so huge, and it was almost as if James Madison had to catch up to his vision. I got you.
And for that made people uncomfortable. And Coach Withers was all about making people uncomfortable.
Okay, so
I don't know if it was a game with him or what, but that was just a part of his leadership style. And that wasn't received well.
You gotta give me an example. Man, if you got one.
I mean, Coach Withers, first of all, I mean, the way he talk is gonna throw you off.
Okay.
I mean, regardless from jump. I mean, he's yelling in the APC. The APC is all student athletes,
right.
But he would stand at the stairs and yell at everybody. You know, if you walking in, just casually walking in, it was almost like the boogeyman or something. He wants you to know that he see you and that you better get going.
To any athlete or just football player?
Not to he wouldn't say to any athlete, but because we were always in there and because we're the biggest team. I mean, you got people over on the other side trying to study, but yet you can hear him just yelling. And but he was that guy that, you know, had a big vision for the program. He definitely was the cause of a lot of change. I feel like James Madison is one of the most swagged out schools there is, and I definitely feel like that. You know, Coach Withers brought that in, and you know, our locker room is like oh my god, our locker room is like one of the top in the nations for real, and Coach Withers is the one who kind of did all that. So he was tough. He definitely was tough to play for. He wanted everybody to kind of be uncomfortable, but man, I tell you, Coach Withers was one of the most crybabies I ever been around. I've never seen a coach that, I mean, literally he'll go to bat for you, and on every game that you can count on him tearing up, you know, right before, and this is before the game, you know, you can count on, like, here he go, he about to start crying, you know. That's awesome, but for a player, that made me understand that he really cared about us and that he loved this game. You know, he loved the opportunities that it can provide for us. Coach Withers, he's the reason why I came to James Madison. You know, sometimes it is a little weird and uncomfortable because people, you know, kind of branch me and Coach Withers together since we were both there for 2 years. But I feel like he was a cause of a lot of positive change that happened in the James Madison community.
Awesome. Let's go to your junior year, man. Here in Harrisonburg, Virginia, man. I saw you get more comfortable as the season progressed your junior year. What's the biggest difference between your junior year in Harrisonburg and JMU compared to your sophomore year at Georgia Tech?
Well, I went from throwing the ball 9 times a game to 37. So that was a huge difference. I would say the beginning of my career, I try to take positives in everywhere. The beginning of my career, I really learned the foundations of run game. I learned what a 3 technique was. I learned, twist, 3-2 exchange, all of those different things that you kind of learn as a running back. I was able to learn that at Georgia Tech. Now it was time that my eyes now can read the safety. The safety come down, work away, or seeing the leverage of the cornerback. That's stuff that is not taught in a triple option scheme, and you don't even have to worry about that. But for me, that was a huge difference. I mean, I went from my eyes being on defensive linemen to my eyes now being up to safeties and blitzing defenders, So just receiving some of those indicators were different for me, and certainly I got more comfortable as time went. But early on, it was a struggle. It was definitely a struggle to complete a pass almost.
After your junior year, man, you captured the Bill Dudley Award for the best college player in Virginia. He was All-American, finished 4th with the Walton Payton Award. Every person on campus, on JMU campus, now knows who you are. I mean, what was that like? The big man on campus, the celebrity. Granted, it's a smaller school.
Yeah.
How were you able to stay even keeled and humble through it all?
Yeah, I think Coach Withers didn't play favoritism.
Awesome.
So he would yell at me just like he would yell at anybody.
Yeah.
So I had to always make sure that I was on my game. And Coach Withers took academics very, 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 very seriously. I never seen a coach that was so involved in academics as he was. He will call you out in front of a team if you flunk a test or if you're failing a class or whatever. He will call you out. And
you should get more credit for that.
Yeah, by the way. Absolutely. And he would not only would he call you out, but he would call out your position coach to to make sure that like he's taking accountability for your actions.
I like that.
Which forced the player. You have such a strong relationship with your position coach. You don't want to let your position coach down, or you don't want him to get fired, or you just kind of think like, man, dang, he's yelling at.
He knows that you flunked the test, or like.
They had an academic I think they said it was like 4 hours, 4-hour academic meeting every week with the academic advisors, and they go over everybody on the roster every week. That's what they did, and that was huge. I didn't. At a lot of schools, you don't have that. Just your academic advisors take care of it. But, no, Coach Withers was making sure that he was involved in that. And so I had to make sure I still, go to class and get good grades. And I had a good community of brothers that keep you humble. And, I had the braces going. So, they'll joke and stuff like that. So, man, I was just soaking it in as, this is my last opportunity to be able to make an impact in football. You never know what's going to happen after that. So I thought I handled it well.
Yeah. Before your senior year, what were some of the individual goals you had for the season?
Yeah. For me, I wanted to take James Madison to a national championship. And that was my goal. I would be lying if I didn't say that, I seen what Carson Wentz and North Dakota State was doing on that side. And for me, I had one goal: to play North Dakota State in the state, in the national championship game. One, because, going back to our earlier conversation, just being that African American quarterback, I wanted to be on that big stage where, show people that, I can lead my team to a national championship. And then 2, because I knew how good Carson Wentz was and how good he would be, and he had a lot of hype. He was like the number 1 guy, I was the number 2 guy. So, I wanted to, I wanted that kind of Cinderella story type deal. So for me, I didn't really have. I think I remember even saying this is my first time I don't have individual goals. I think that was my first year. I was like, that doesn't mean anything to me. This is my last time playing college football. Of course I'm going to play well. Of course I'm going to give it my all. Of course I'm going to have good games because I'm prepared and ready for this moment. So that was almost kind of like an expectation now. That wasn't like something I had to pump myself up. Oh, I need to throw 200 this game. I need to throw 300. For me, it was like I need to put my team in a position that we can win every game. I had that state championship from high school feeling all over again. Like, this is our year to go undefeated and win a national championship.
The greatest feeling as an athlete, man, is when you're in the heat of battle, man, heat of competition, and you're in that zone.
Mm-hmm.
Like, no matter what play the coach called, you execute it to the
absolutely
fullest ability, man. You making guys miss.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you remember Mario when you get hot and Mario, and everybody just bouncing off you. Man, I remember watching this game online. Or was it on ESPN? I can't remember. But against SMU,
mm-hmm.
the first player, man, to throw for over 275 and rush for 275. The first player in NCAA history.
Yeah.
What? Now, like, what was that feeling like, bro? Like,
yeah.
That's crazy even when I even just talk about it.
Yeah.
Like, you were literally in a zone like no one has ever seen.
Yeah. Well, one, you don't really realize, the stats while you're playing.
Yeah.
You don't. I had no idea that, first of all, that has never been done before.
Right.
I'm like, man, that's cool. Afterwards, you know. But it's not something that wanted, I made plans to do. You know what I mean? I will tell you my mindset going into that SMU game. I remember it like it was yesterday. I didn't share this with anybody else, but my personal mindset was, this is my last opportunity to play on this level. I've been a part of the FBS level before, so I know what the competition like, and I know what it's like. So for me, it wasn't like, oh, we get to play SMU. That was a game that I circled on my personal calendar, in the springtime, because I knew that was my last opportunity to show people what I could do on that level. And we just took advantage of it. We played really well as a team. We finished all the way to the end. There was never any doubt that we wouldn't win that game.
College game day.
Yes, sir.
Man, I went to college game day.
Oh, did you?
It was electric, bro. Like, I just would never forget the feeling. I was kind of envious, man, that I didn't get to experience this. And you were a big reason why college game day decided to come to Harrisonburg. Like, man, the campus.
Yeah, it was booming. Yeah.
What was that week like? You knew college game day is coming to Harrisonburg, Virginia. Your friends, family, everybody probably hitting you up, interview requests.
Yeah. It was crazy. That whole week was just electric. For me, I thought that was the visions that I had for Georgia Tech. I never would have thought that, I would go to a smaller school and to experience something so big as that.
Right.
That was a really, really cool feeling, and it was a great week. I mean, classes was great. The professors seemed a little more lenient and nice, and the students every day was just like hype. And college game day started rolling in, I think, like on Wednesday or something. So, you see the bus come rolling in, and you're like, man, this is really cool. And we did something that I don't think any other team has ever done before. We actually went on set on game day. Coach Withers, he's
gotta play the crowd.
He's like a big time guy. So I don't think any other team has ever did that. We probably set a record right there. I'm pretty sure that didn't make Richmond happy, but it was Coach Withers allowed us to enjoy the moment. We didn't think that you never know when when college game day is going to come back to James Madison. So for us, we really enjoyed the moment. He even surprised us with new white helmets. So that was really cool. It was fun. We ended up going on Friday night to go address the fans and the crowd, and it was packed on Friday night. And I think Desmond Howard even said that this was the greatest scene that they have ever hosted James Madison. So it just tells you about James Madison. So if there's any recruit out there that's looking at JMU, you definitely want to consider.
Absolutely. That same game, man, you hurt your foot. And I knew before the game, I said, Vad Lee's gonna win the Walter Payton Award. Man, it was already written. And to see your career abruptly end that way, I felt for you, bro. I didn't even know you at the time, man, but I felt for. I think the whole JMU Nation felt for you.
Yeah.
What was that like, knowing that, man, I just pretty much my career just it's over.
Yeah, man, that was tough. I've never really been injured before.
Yeah.
So for me, the first thing that I thought was like a sprained ankle. I'm gonna finish this game.
Yeah.
I ended up staying in like 4 plays. I threw like a bomb on one foot. It was like 37 yards, and it was in the air forever. It was in the air forever that the DB actually misjudged it because he like, dang, when is this ball gonna come down?
Right.
And it landed in my receiver's hands. But for me, man, that was the first time that I saw, walking off that field, I remember taking a look back, and even before I got off the field, I knew that if I came to the sideline, that it was a potential that it would be over forever. So in my mind, I was in the zone and I was staying out on the field, and I wasn't gonna come out. And the only reason I came out is because it came down to a 4th and 3, and Coach Withers called a timeout so that we can get our play together. And of course, I got to come to the sideline. And I almost stayed in the middle of the field because I knew that I knew it was bad. But I was just like, I know if I go to that sideline, it's a chance that it's potentially over. So walking in the locker room, that was my first time really seeing, the game differently or seeing life differently.
Flashes, right?
It just like flashed, and I don't even think I could see the game. I could see people moving, but it was like just I was out of it, And, for me, I tell this story all the time that that was my first time. I realized that life goes on with or without you, and I was a superstar quarterback, but the game still got to be played. Life still got to go on. So, I seen my coaches kept coaching. I seen my teammates kept playing. The fans kept cheering. And, for me, it was like everything was kind of coming to an end. So that was a tough reality. But that's the game of football and, something that I had to be able to deal with.
What was your mental health at when you did realize, all right, man, I'm done.
Yeah.
I'm not coming back this year, and my college career is really over.
Yeah, for me, I had a strong support system.
Yeah.
I was involved with the Fellowship of Christian Athletes. I was seen as a leader in the community.
Mm-hmm.
I was involved in a lot of stuff. But I will say busyness can sometimes not be the greatest thing right after something so tragic, because, I just kind of made myself busy. And it was tough, but I was still hopeful for the best for James Madison, my teammates, that we would still have a successful season.
Yeah.
Actually, Coach Withers asked me to start doing the lead chapel the next game, which was a cool opportunity because I don't think I ever had a conversation with him. This is something that I always kind of wanted to do, but I don't know if he knew that or not. And but he allowed me to do that. And I thought that was pretty divine by God. To now my new role, actually I'm writing a book called Purpose Over Position. And
make sure I get my son copy.
Yeah, absolutely. Purpose Over Position was birthed from this because while my position, my starting quarterback position was taken away, my purpose still remained the same. I was a team captain. I was a leader of the team. It would be a bad look if I wouldn't show up at practice, just because I'm injured. It would be a bad look if I didn't show up for games and cheer my teammates on, because my purpose was way bigger than my position. So, that's kind of where that was birthed from, and I had to live it at that time.
Yeah, man, interesting that you brought that up because when I had my knee injury, I was like, man, forget this.
Yeah, absolutely.
I ain't going to the
I had
games.
those same thoughts.
I was having that pity party.
Yeah.
I could have definitely read your book or had some mentorship during that tough time. Lastly, man, the next year, JMU wins a national championship.
Yeah.
Is it a bittersweet? Of course, you're happy.
Yeah.
To see all your former teammates
Absolutely.
take it that far.
Absolutely.
But at the same time, you're like, man, I wish I was a part of
Yeah.
it. But it's part of the foundation that you laid too.
Yeah.
What was that like, seeing them host the trophy up in the rafters? Like,
Yeah, I remember being in Atlanta, Georgia, with my wife, and we went to a watch party when they played North Dakota State the week before, and they went to the Dome and beat North Dakota State. They had an amazing game. Brian Short, I mean, he killed it. I mean, everybody did just great. And I went to a watch party, and at this point, I'm no longer Vad Lee, the athlete, the quarterback, the superstar. I'm just a fan and a former athlete, you know, an alumni, just like all the other people that was at the watch party. And I remember that night, man, I broke down. And that was the first time that I think that was, you know, obviously when the night that I got hurt, you know, I was in tears and, you know, it definitely hurt. You know, I was in pain. But that night of the watch party after North Dakota State was totally different. It was all of my emotions for the last year, just you know, grabbed me. And I remember laying on my wife's lap, and she had to, you know, console me and everything. And I just remember feeling like, man, that was the first time. And I never tried to question, but that was the first time I was like, man, why me? You know. You know, I try to do things right. I try to be a positive, you know, leader in the community. You know, I tried to do things right. I wasn't perfect by any sense. But I'm like, man, you know, I thought that we would be the team, or, you know, that, you know, I would be able to lead my team to a championship my senior year. And the fact that we were undefeated, things were going well, you know, we were heading in the right direction. And to end in injury, it was kind of like, man, you know, what could have it been? What you know, I wonder what the story would have been. But yeah, it was certainly bittersweet. But I mean, I wouldn't take anything away from those guys in the national championship. James Madison. In fact, you know, I knew that I was so emotional that I couldn't be involved. So I didn't. I think I came to one game maybe, and that was just weird for me. It was like, the one question that everybody kept asking was, what are you doing now? And I'm like, man, I really didn't have a strong answer for him, because I'm trying to figure out life. This is a year after, you know, and I'm not really proud of where I was, because, you know, I pictured something different. And he was like, what are you doing now? What are you doing now? So I was so emotional that I really couldn't be involved. But I will say that my coach, Coach Powell, he was the offensive line coach at James Madison for that national championship team, and my coach as well. He had called me and said, hey, are you coming to the game? And I said, no, I really don't have any money to go. And I really didn't want to go either. But he's like, I told him, I said, no, I'm not going. I don't have money and things like that. And he was like, Vad, he said, you're coming to the game. And he was like, you know, order your ticket right now. And he's like, it's on me, you know. And that was, you know, Coach Powell is somebody that I view, who I've seen as a family man, as a coach, as a mentor, who I strive to be like. So I ended up going to the game because of Coach Powell. Okay. And it's funny, I had somebody else say, hey, I got an extra ticket. You know, you can come to you know, get my ticket. We can sit together. And I was like, cool. All right, now I have a ticket. And he's like, somebody else like, hey, you can stay with us tonight, you know, whatever. So I literally went, not on my own will. It was almost as if God was orchestrating it. Because even in the pregame, the pep rally, I guess they were looking for Jeff Bourne, the AD. He was nowhere to be found, and somebody spotted me in the crowd on stage, and they were like, hey, there's Vad, get him up here. Oh, wow, okay. So I had to fill in for Jeff Bourne, and I had no intentions to be, you know, to be at the pep rally or anything. I didn't even know the pep rally was going on. And so I was able to fill in for Jeff Bourne, and I was sitting in my regular seat, and then, you know, somebody in the president's box saw me, and they was like, hey, come up here. So now I'm in the president's box, and they had food, you know, all you can eat. And so now I'm eating in the president's box, and then next thing you know, the fourth quarter roll around, I get a call from one of the SID guys or whatever, and he called me. He's on the sideline, the clock is like less than 3 minutes, and he's like, hey, I got an extra pass. Come down here for the last minute.
Oh, wow.
So I went from not going at all to now being able to go, to having a ticket, having somewhere to stay, to pumping up the fans of JMU at the pep rally, to eating in the president's box, to then going down on the field to celebrate the accomplishment of James Madison. So purpose over position, right? Definitely, it was a cool opportunity to be a part of it.
Last question, man. I always like to ask this question. What would the Vad Lee who's sitting here right now tell the 18 to 21-year-old Vad Lee?
Yeah. I would definitely say every decision that you make right now is going to stick with you. You know what I mean? Your decisions right now matters, and they are important. Every moment is important. So choose wisely. Be wise in who you hang out with. Be wise in where you go. Be wise in how you act, and just be wise in every decision that you make, because it has the ability to change your entire life for the good or the better.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I appreciate you, man.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.